Welcome everyone, Doc here with Eyes Wide Shot Gaming, and in this video we will be looking and going over my top 5 favorite builds that I've put together for Apocalypse difficulty. Let's jump right into the thick of it and start out with the Healing Support build, a build that revolves around keeping your teammates and your own health topped off without being any kind of game-breaking unkillable build. For our amulet we will be running Legacy Protocol for the skill cooldown and skill duration. Our first ring we have on is Black Bond Stamp for more skill cooldown, followed by Burden of the Divine, which drops all our damage by 10% but applies 50% of our self-healing to our allies. Next up, our third ring is the Burden of the Rebel, a ring that further reduces our skill cooldown but at the same time reduces our relic use speed. And finally, our final ring will be the Generating Band, which helps us regenerate 3% of our max health per second while we have any kind of shield active, 1.5% of which will apply to our teammates due to our second ring, Burden of the Divine. For our relic, we will run Constrained Heart, which regenerates 23 health per second for 5 seconds. 11.5 of that health will be applied once again towards our allies. The 3 slots we will have are skill cooldown, shield effectiveness, and healing effectiveness. Our primary weapon will be the Bone Saw, but you can replace it with any other non-boss weapon. That way we can equip Healing Shot, and for the Mutator we will have Spirit Healer. For our melee weapon we are open to predominantly any of them, so take your pick. And our secondary weapon will be the Sorrow Handgun due to its mod Eulogy and the Mutator Prophecy. The first archetype we use is Medic with the Healing Shield, and our second archetype is the Handler with Support Dog. The traits we run with this setup is Fortify, Kingship, Regrowth, Expertise, Spirit, Vigor, Triage, Amplitude, Barkskin, Bloodstream, Siphoner, and Shadeskin. The entire build is not designed to output a lot of damage, but to upkeep and maintain everyone's health. This build can be applied to hardcore runs as well. Try it out on Apocalypse, as is, or modify it and make it better and your own. Our next build, which is one of my favorites that I've put together, is the Explosive Meridian build. We start off with the Detonation Trigger for the amulet, which increases our explosive damage and implies burning. The first ring we equip will be the Blasting Cap ring, which further increases our explosive damage by another 10%. Then, we swap our focus on mod power and or generation, so we put on the Spirit Stone for the 10% mod power generation. Next, the Burden of the Destroyer ring. It drops our ideal range of firearms by 25%, but increases all damage dealt by a whopping 15%. And finally, we get to the last ring, the Shard Banded ring, which increases our mod damage by 12%. For our Heart Relic, we have the Constrained Heart equipped. To it, armor effectiveness, mod damage, and mod cost. Over to our first archetype, Archon. If not for nothing else, the Prime Perk Tempest generates 3 mod power per second, and casting a mod increases all mod generation by 100%. In addition to it, the skill Chaos Gate, which conjures up a zone that grants allies a 15% increase to all damage dealt, 25% increased mod generation, but increases the damage we take by 15%. The second archetype we equip is Hunter, for its increase to our range damage by 40%, along with the Hunter's Mark skill that marks all enemies in a 35-meter radius and increases our range damage by an additional 15%. And this all brings us now to our weapons. We start with the melee, which is interchangeable to whatever you prefer. The primary weapon is also interchangeable. I like the Merciless for its rate of fire and mod, but you can use any primary weapon. Now finally, we get to the bread and butter of our build, the secondary weapon, the Meridian. The Mutator I prefer on it is Feedback, just for more mod generation. For the traits, it's very easy and can be swapped around to any formation. The 3 main traits are Flashcaster, Expertise, and Spirit. The others can be tailored to your liking. Use and enjoy this fireworks show of a build. We keep trucking on over to the third build, and it's shockingly good. The amulet we pick is a Legacy Protocol for the skill duration mostly. The first ring we throw on is the Grounding Stone for its increase to shock damage. Next, the Shade Stone. Seems like a typo for the word shade with an E at the end. We use it for its increase to our skill damage. Our third ring is an easy choice, and that's the Black Pawn Stamp, to help further reduce the cooldown of our skills. And finally, we get to our fourth ring, the Burden of the Rebel, to continue our skill cooldown reduction. As you can see, we're trying to lower our skill cooldown and keep up our shock damage. So we use the Enigma for our secondary weapon, along with Spirit Healer as the mutator. The primary weapon we go for is the Black Maw AR-47. Attached to it, the Overflow mod for electric rounds, as well as increase to our fire rate. And the mutator we use is Bandit for a chance at more ammo. The melee weapon I use is the World's Edge, but there are a few others that can replace it. Let's take a look at our Relic Heart. Again, we use the Constrained Heart, and on it we have skill cooldown, skill damage, and skill duration. Over onto the Archetype, we opt for our primary archetype to be Archon with the Havoc Form skill to unleash 39 seconds of lightning tendrils that make Storm from X-Men seem like a taser. For the second archetype, we have Engineer for the skill damage, and for its skill, we run the Heavy Weapon Vulcan. Our traits are very cut and dry. Flashcaster, Expertise, and Spirit being our main three again, and the rest are very interchangeable. I hope this third build on my list really sparks an interest in people to spend some time in creating your very own build or version of a build. Moving on to the fourth build in the video. It may not be the most lethal, but I assure you it's one of the most fun. We begin with, once again, the Legacy Protocol Amulet to focus skill cooldown. The first ring we invest in is the Black Pawn Stamp for its skill cooldown as well, followed by the Burden of the Rebel Ring to continue dropping the cooldown of our skill. The third ring we have on is Shadow of Misery to increase the damage of status effects by 15%. And our final ring is the Excess Coil for a shield when using a skill. For our Heart Relic, we have on the Tranquil Heart. Along on it, we equip skill cooldown, skill damage, and elemental damage. We don't care too much about elemental duration because we will continuously apply elemental damage to our enemies. Our primary weapon is the Plasma Cutter with the Twisting Wounds mutator, so we can apply bleed atop the other status effects. Our secondary is the Star Shot, just for a big and loud introduction when entering boss fights. And finally, our melee weapon is once again interchangeable to anything you desire. In this case, I'm using the World's Edge. For our primary archetype, we use Ritualist with the Miasma skill. Our secondary archetype is Gunslinger. Attached to it, we use Bulletstorm to increase our fire rate and apply the bleeding status effect from Twisting Wounds faster. The main three traits we go for are Expertise, Amplitude, and Siphoner. The others can be changed to whichever you feel most comfortable using. Altogether, we create a build that, along with consumables, we drop our Miasma skill down to 9 seconds, which allows our teammates to enhance their builds around damage to enemies with status effects. I hope this build opens doors for everyone to enjoy the possibilities status effects have in Remnant 2. Finally, we get to our fifth and last build, which revolves around damage output of our primary weapon. We begin by using the Cost of Betrayal Amulet for the damage increase of 20%. Our first ring is the Probability Cord for crit damage increase. Next up, Atonement Fold, which goes hand in hand with our third ring, the Blood Tinged Ring, both of which can be swapped for even more damage by using the Devourer's Loop. For our fourth ring, we use Xania's Malice to implement weak spot damage to our crit damage mix. With this build, our secondary and melee weapons don't bring much value to us, so we can use whatever we want, but our primary is where the power truly lies. We use the Plasma Cutter for its fast fire rate, along with the mutator Momentum for increase to crit chance and damage. The relic heart we use is obviously the Tranquil Heart. Since we only have one heart, we want heals. The relics on said heart are weak spot damage, ranged fire rate, and ranged critical damage. For our first archetype, we run Gunslinger, along with Bulletstorm for the fire rate increase and unlimited ammo. Our secondary archetype is Challenger to further increase our damage, and the Rampage skill allows us to raise our fire rate and reload speed even higher, not to mention the Rage. The traits are simple once again, our main three being Expertise, Spirit, and Siphoner. The rest of the traits are completely interchangeable and are completely up to you. All 5 builds can have any armor setup you prefer, may it be heavy or light, and many traits can be changed without drastically affecting the build as a whole. Enjoy them, alter them, make them even better, and comment how you did so. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and until next time, so long.